Hey everyone. So when most people think of fuel-efficient Volkswagens, what immediately comes to mind is the infamous TDI turbo diesels. They offer lots of torque, yet deliver great fuel mileage into the 40 mile per gallon range. However, what you may not know is Volkswagen actually offered a Jetta that delivers even better fuel mileage with very similar torquey performance. And that happens to be the Jetta Hybrid. And today I'm going to review it. In my recent review of a 2015 Volkswagen Golf TDI, I went over some of the pros and cons of owning a diesel. But today I'm going to show you why this Jetta Hybrid is a very compelling option, especially if you're looking for the performance and handling of a Volkswagen without dealing with diesel fuel. So this particular car is a top-of-the-line loaded up SEL premium package. It has things like Fender sound system navigation and a sunroof. It has about 90,000 miles, and the Kelley Blue Book fair market value right now is about $8,200. That is roughly $2,000 cheaper than a comparable Jetta TDI and over $4,000 cheaper than a comparable Prius. So as you can see, it is a very good value. Now, Volkswagen introduced the Jetta Hybrid in 2013, and the final model year was 2016. So as you can see, it was a pretty short run. And in fact, they didn't build very many of these cars. A quick nationwide search on AutoTrader only shows about 24 of these cars in the nation available for sale right now. And a quick search within dealer auctions only shows 16 available this week. So you might have a hard time finding one, but if you do, it's worth looking at. And here's why. So here's where the magic happens. Unlike most hybrids, Volkswagen actually uses a turbocharged engine. Most of the hybrids you see, like a C-Max or a Toyota Prius, use normally aspirated four-cylinder engines with a continuously variable transmission, or a CVT. They obviously don't deliver much on the performance spectrum. Volkswagen uses a 1.4 liter, so a small displacement, turbocharged direct injected engine mated to a 7-speed dual clutch DCT DSG transmission. So you get a lot of the performance that you would feel in other Volkswagen products, like a GTI for example, but you get great gas mileage because of the hybrid system. So Volkswagen's hybrid system uses a small 27 horsepower electric motor mated in between the engine and the transmission. It has the ability to completely couple and add power, as well as drive the car under electric power only for short distances. It works as a great system in the sense that it is fun to drive. It actually offers a lot of torque, the transmission shifts nicely, and it gives you more of a pleasurable driving experience than you would see in a typical hybrid. Volkswagen rates the engine at 150 horsepower and 184 foot-pounds of torque. The electric motor adds an additional 27 horsepower and 114 foot-pounds of torque. Now, the overall rating of this car is 170 horsepower and the same 184 foot-pounds of torque. So you might ask, why isn't the number higher because of the electric motor? Well, the transmission is a little weaker. The 7-speed is a dry clutch. It's a little smaller and therefore has weaker parts, and so the amount of torque available of this, Volkswagen didn't want to test the transmission in that way. But what it does is it offers a much more broad torque band. So whenever the gas engine can't deliver the full 184 foot-pounds, the electric motor assists and gives the full 184 foot-pounds of torque across the rev range. So what else is different about the Jetta Hybrid compared to other Jetta models? Well, quite a bit actually. It has a completely different front bumper and grille, and also has this rear spoiler. All of that adds to the aerodynamic efficiency of this car and gives it a little bit better fuel mileage on the highway. It also has these unique 17 by 8 inch wheels, But one of the biggest changes that this car has compared to other Jetta models is the rear suspension. This car uses the multi-link performance setup out of the Jetta GLI. So for handling ability, this car is going to be much better suited for a back road than you would get from a standard Jetta, including the TDI, because those cars use a torsion beam rear suspension. Outside of that, inside the car is pretty much standard Jetta fare. The only other thing about it that's different is inside the trunk is where the battery pack goes, and it does eat into some of the cargo capacity of this car. So how does that all add up out on the road? Well, let's take it out for a drive and find out. Okay, I'm behind the wheel of this Jetta hybrid, and we're gonna get it out and do a little driving with it. Starting out here in town with a little bit of boulevard driving. And so far, to me, it feels very at home. I'm used to Volkswagens and I own one, so it's very comfortable for me. Cabin noise is very subdued. It's definitely on par with more upscale cars. It's not quite as tinny as what you would get in some, especially some of the Japanese cars, like a Prius, for example. You still get a little growl from the engine that's kind of nice. Again, this car is going to offer a little more performance, a little more sport than your typical hybrid. So you're going to hear more of a growl from the engine. So acceleration is pretty brisk. It's got a lot of low-end torque that gets it going. You can definitely feel the assist from the electric motor. Right off the bat, when you first get into the gas, there's a little bit of a delay, a little bit of turbo lag getting it going, but then the engine comes on pretty strong by about 1800 to 2000 RPM, and then right about then is when the electric motor starts to give its assist, and you get quite a push of acceleration. Now, one other thing that I've noticed right off the bat is as with all hybrids, it has regenerative braking. So it's kind of weird when you first touch the brakes, even lightly, you get quite a bit of braking that happens, and you'll see on the monitor here in the dash where it goes into regenerating mode, and which is recharging the battery pack. But as you feed more brake pedal in, the response actually kind of goes away. It's so immediate on the regenerative part that the actual braking being done later kind of feels softer, if that makes sense. Takes a little bit of getting used to. Most hybrids have a unique driving experience because of the way that they regenerate and recharge the batteries under braking. So nothing new there. Ride quality so far is very nice. This car is a little softer than even your average Jetta. The spring rates are a little softer. I think Volkswagen was going more for a premium feel to this car, a little higher end, and it also is a heavier car than your standard Jetta, so that might play into why they designed it this way, but it definitely offers a great ride. Yet at the same time, there's a firmness, there's definitely a German character to it that I definitely like as an enthusiast. Okay, now time to see what this Jetta hybrid will do on a 0 to 60 test. And here we go. And right on par with what Car and Driver says, 7.9 seconds. So it definitely delivers very brisk performance for a hybrid. All right, it's time to get this Jetta hybrid out on the freeway, and let's see if we can back up some of these mile per gallon claims that Volkswagen has for this car. And we'll also check out the merging power right now and see how quickly it can get up to speed for the freeway. Well, it's not going to win any drag races, but it's very similar to the TDI that I tested recently, and in its merging power. It is more torquey than it is powerful. The engine will rev pretty well, but it's definitely has the bulk of the power is in the lower rev range. It doesn't make as much power as you rev it up. However, it was really easy to achieve 80 miles an hour and merge right into traffic very, very easily on a short on-ramp like that. So we're cruising down the freeway right now, doing about 75 miles an hour, and it's very, very flat right here, so we can get a pretty good indication of what the fuel mileage is. The onboard computer says right now at steady state is we are returning about 48 miles per gallon, between 45 and 48. So that jives well with what Volkswagen says. Now, real world may be different. I've read some articles about these cars that ultimately they don't return quite as good of gas mileage as the EPA says. So your results may vary. Either way, it's a significant increase in fuel mileage over a gas Jetta, even the current 1.4 liter versions. And depending on your driving style, could actually be an increase over what you would find in a TDI. Ride quality so far on the freeway is fantastic. I'm obviously a big Volkswagen and Audi, Volkswagen Auto Group fan. I love the way they drive for long trips. Very solid feeling. They track very straight. There's a hint of sportiness to it, but at the same time, it just soaks up the miles with ease. Very comfortable experience. Seat comfort is excellent. Like other Volkswagens, the only real drawback is it's not true leather. It is the VTEX leatherette. You cannot get leather, even in the most upscale trim like this premium SEL. They only offer the leatherette. Now, it's very durable. You're never going to wear the side bolster out like you can in most cars, even with leather. And but the seating surface feels nice. This particular car has the lighter beige interior, so that's nicer for, especially for a hot climate. And it's you're not going to get in and burn yourself like you would with a black interior. There's not a lot of bolstering for cornering. Here in a little bit, we'll get it on a back road to kind of test the handling a little bit. And I would imagine I'm going to have to, hold myself up quite a bit. But for long distance trips or commuting, definitely high grade as far as comfort goes with the seats. Now, one interesting thing about this as we're driving on the freeway, like I mentioned before, driving around town, the brakes take some getting used to. Here on the freeway with a truck in front of me, and I just lightly touching the brakes, it goes into that regeneration mode, and it provides a lot more braking than you're really asking for. All I wanted to do was just slightly slow, and just the slightest touch made the car slow down a little bit more than that because it was going into that regeneration mode. So let's check the passing ability. This car gets it. It's impressive power. You can kind of feel the boost from the electric motor. When you first get on the gas, you get kind of a little bit of a delay. It makes a downshift. The gas engine wakes up, the turbo comes on, and it shoots the car forward. And then you get this little boost that you can feel with the electric motor. And it's actually quite nice and makes passing really easy. Steering response on the freeway is really good. It's typical German, little heavy on center. You're not going to mistake this for a luxury car, but it tracks really straight. You have a heft to it that just makes road trips like this very enjoyable, actually. Definitely a great long trip companion. So we'll jump off the freeway here and kind of check the brakes on a more of a threshold situation. So braking power is good, not great, good. You get an initial kind of a heavy pushback with the brakes, and that's due to the regeneration. Then actually the pedal goes a little soft, and when you're totally relying on all of the brake rotors and calipers to slow you down. Okay, we got out of town and now we're on a back road to kind of see how this car handles. Some of you may recognize this road. This is a favorite road of mine that definitely can test the handling and ride trade-off of a car really, really well, because it's got some bumps, but it's got some nice twisty sections as well. So I'm really curious to feel how this car does, especially knowing that it has that independent multi-link rear suspension from a GLI. Yes, the spring rates are going to be a lot softer, but should provide a nice handling experience. Now, unfortunately, this car does not offer paddle shifters like what you would get in some other cars with the DSG transmission. However, it does offer the manual ability here on the shifter that I can use manual controls on the DSG if I want. So starting off, we'll just leave it in drive mode and just kind of cruise through this back road and kind of feel what it's doing. So over those bumps right there, it was pretty bouncy. The suspension tuning is definitely on the soft side, but so far turn-in response is excellent. I'm enjoying the feel at the steering wheel. Is very nice. It's very direct. You can feel what's going on. If you've seen my other videos with other Volkswagen and Audi products, there's no surprise. I am enjoying the way that this car handles. Brakes feel pretty good. They're not very strong in the sense of a sports car, but they definitely haul the car down well, and the pedal feedback is pretty nice. A little bit soft, but pretty nice. So far, pretty impressed with this car. This is definitely going to provide a much more sporty experience than you're going to get with just about any other hybrid outside of the hybrid supercars like an i8 or an NSX. Turn-in is excellent. Suspension's a little bit soft, definitely some body roll, but it's holding the road really, really well. Now, this car does have a different set of tires on it than what the car would have come with from the factory. From the factory, they came with very low rolling resistant tires that didn't provide a lot of outright grip. These tires are going to be a little better than that. Now, I'm not pushing super hard, but I tell you what, if you were out here with a group of cars for a fun afternoon of driving, this car would keep up with some pretty amazing performance cars. Yeah, this is awesome. You know, it's not the most powerful, the best performing, or best handling car I've ever driven out here, obviously. But if you're looking for a car that doesn't take shortcuts on performance and handling, yet gets great gas mileage, you got to go look at one of these. It's been pretty impressive out here. I figured that it would handle decent, you know, because it's a Volkswagen, and modern Volkswagen chassis are fantastic on a back road. But this is heavy, and it's definitely got soft springs, which made me believe that it might be a little disappointing. Not so, especially on a bumpy road like this. Very composed. You can feel what's going on at the contact patch, and it stays glued down pretty well. So now I'm going to put it over into manual mode and test I don't have paddle shifters, but I can use the shifter to manually control the shifts. So third gear, coming out of a corner. Fourth gear. Fifth gear. And we have cows. Welcome to the Central Valley of California. So It's not very intuitive in the manual mode. And the reason why is the electric hybrid system is constantly trying to intervene. So like on downshifts, when I hit the brakes, it goes into regeneration mode and you can't even feel it making the downshift. Upshifts are okay. You definitely get a nice little quick shift. But downshifts again are pretty non-existent as far as the feel goes. So I'm going to put it back over into automatic. It also has a sport mode. I'll put it down into that to kind of see how that handles. Not a big difference going into sport mode. I'm not really feeling much there. So it kind of hunts for gears coming out of corners. That's one thing I'm noticing that's not super performance oriented is it kind of hunts and it's trying to decide whether it wants to use the hybrid, whether it wants full boost from the engine. Not a lot of spectacular things going on there. But when you need power, it's got a good boost of power, comes off corners pretty good, and obviously the handling is very German-like, very Volkswagen, great turn-in, crisp response, a decent amount of grip, even though this car has pretty soft spring rates. Well, I definitely enjoyed that back road drive in this car. It definitely provides a great handling experience, something that you're not going to find in too many hybrids.
Okay, now it is time for my final review on this 90,000 mile 2013 Volkswagen Jetta hybrid. First, the thumbs up category. Number 1, value. With a fair market value that's thousands of dollars cheaper than a comparably equipped Prius, this car represents a pretty strong value. And in fact, it's probably reached near the bottom of its depreciation curve, meaning it's probably not going to go down much more in the future. My second thumbs up is powertrain. The little 1.4 liter turbocharged TSI engine definitely performs better than the specs would suggest. Lots of low-end torque move the car along very nicely. And the added torque from the hybrid system gives it a very broad power band. For the transmission, as I've mentioned before, I'm a big fan of the Volkswagen Auto Group DSG dual clutch transmissions. They offer the precision of a manual with the ease of an automatic. And it gives this car a sporting personality not typically found in your average hybrid. For my third thumbs up, it's handling. Now, this car is definitely softly sprung. However, I was very impressed with how it handled a twisty road. The ride and handling trade-off is something not normally seen in a hybrid, and chassis composure is very good. It has crisp turn-in and pretty good grip. The multi-link rear suspension definitely seems to contribute to this car's handling ability. Okay, now it's time for my thumbs down. Number 1 is the brakes. The brakes do a decent job of slowing this 3,300 plus pound sedan down. However, the feel is not the best. You get an initial surge of braking as the hybrid system regenerates the energy to recharge the batteries. And that initial surge is somewhat surprising and will overslow the car in light braking situations. Threshold braking is somewhat uneven. When you get past the initial surge of regeneration, the brake feel goes a bit soft. And my spirited back road drive did induce some fade. For my second thumbs down, it's complexity. One of the biggest drawbacks to a hybrid is how complex they are. Integrating an electric motor between the engine and transmission means do-it-yourself repairs are likely out of the question. Finally, for my third thumbs down, it's reliability. Reliability can definitely be a point of concern. Not only is this a complex hybrid, it's a complex German hybrid. The DSG transmission requires a critical service every 40,000 miles, and it's a known failure point, as is the battery pack and electrical system. So be careful when looking at one of these. They just won't tolerate abuse and lack of scheduled maintenance like some cars will. Well, that wraps up my review of this 2013 Volkswagen Jetta Hybrid. A car that I think is worth looking at if you're looking for a fun to drive car that also gets great gas mileage. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please subscribe for more interesting car reviews.